Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Talk Construction. I'm Angela Gardner, and I'm here with my co-host, Christy Powell. Hey,
Hey,
Christy. How are
hey,
you today?
great. It's beautiful outside.
Isn't it? It's fall. It's beautiful. The holidays are
Mm-hmm.
approaching. Yay. And we have a superstar on this episode that we're getting
Yes.
ready to introduce and talk to, and y'all are going to absolutely love her. Um, I first met her on LinkedIn. I've never met her in person, but it would be awesome if we ever did, right, Christy?
Yes.
She is a project superintendent with 17 years at HENSEL PHELPS, and she specializes, get this, in aviation and university campus programs. Now that's pretty awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
But her true passion and what we're going to talk a lot about today is workforce well-being. And that's something that is just now we're scraping the edge of it or talking about it. And I think she was one of the forefront people that started talking about this topic a couple of years ago. And we, in fact, we were talking about her first toolbox talk that Christy loved, and we'll probably share. Hopefully, we'll have that link on our website. But I'm not going to say her full bio, so you can go to our website and view all of it, or follow her on LinkedIn and see everything. But we are so lucky to have Kabri here today talking with us. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
We're so glad you're here. And the toolbox talks, I told her this before the interview today. I literally fell in love with her first toolbox talk that I saw. And it's very real, it's very
Mm-hmm.
mental excuse me, well being related. It is just top of mind things that we don't think about a lot of times when we're on a job site. And to be able to just bring that to mind and to be able to go out in your day and just treat people in a way that they're human, it makes a huge difference on not only performance of your team, but the revenue that a company is going to bring in as well. If you have psychological safety, which is a keyword we're going to talk about today, and Kabri is going to tell us a little bit more about what that means. But in that context, how can field leaders practically implement psychological safety and mental well-being on their job sites?
Thanks so much for having me talk about this. It is definitely a passion of mine as I go out into the field every day and get to really just help people be successful. I work for a general contractor, and so I have the privilege of having a lot of power and responsibility on site. And so psychological safety is a way that I frame the actions, behaviors, and expectations that I have for myself and for others. I think it's really important that we start with the definition of psychological safety because while it is starting to gain traction within the construction and greater engineering architecture industries, it didn't start there. And so the most commonly spoken about definition was coined by the organizational psychologist Amy Edmondson, where she says that it's broadly defined as the climate in which people are comfortable expressing and being themselves. And so if you're on a team with high psychological safety, you and your teammates feel safe to take risks and feel vulnerable in front of each other. And that you feel really confident that no one is going to embarrass or punish you for either admitting a mistake, speaking up with an idea, or giving somebody feedback, right? And so this is a group phenomenon. It's about how a group reacts just as much as it is about how an individual feels. The people tend to trust one another, respect their teammates, and this leads to their willingness to question or try something new. This is really applicable to construction because a good example of how this works is like think about a daily morning team huddle out on a job site. It can go one of two ways. One way is they go around the circle and all of the four persons tell me exactly what I want to hear, that my schedule is perfect, that everything I ever imagined 3 years ago when we created the schedule is just happening right on time, all the materials ready to go. Or it can actually be going around and talking about the challenges people have in order to be successful in their own company's organization goals. And then people listening on how they can help support that other person and that other company.
Mm.
And you can get there. It's a hard thing to manage imagine in our industry at times that people can look at that interdependency as an option, and that's where psychological safety comes into play.
That must help so much. I mean,
Yes.
yeah,
Just
exactly.
the freedom to be able to share your challenges,
Yeah,
right? And no matter where you're at, and your wins. Like a lot of times I don't share my wins because you never know how somebody's going to react to that.
yeah.
Like, do they think I'm bragging? Do they think that, I'm better than them? And, yeah, that vulnerability piece is really important.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing when I open this up, and I want to mention it right now. Is she is also the co-founder of a nonprofit called Build with Pride Seattle. So definitely that's
Nice.
also on social accounts. It's a nonprofit. I think she is looking also for funding and for support. So we will also have that link on our website as well. And we want to support her. So, what are some strategies that you recommend for ensuring the pursuit of psychological safety that doesn't conflict with meeting technical project deadlines and performance metrics? Because that's very important in construction. We gotta meet your deadlines, and everything needs to go as well as possible.
It's a great question because when you hear psychological safety, and if you go watch YouTube's or go to trainings about psychological safety, it's often treated almost as like a siloed topic. Just like our industry has been really great at trying to advance conversations on inclusion and mental health in the last 5 years, psychological safety cannot live on its own. And so the value is supposed to be that it shows up as improved safety culture, that there is improved inclusion and belonging within teams, that you have organizational strategies for retention, creative business solutions, more innovation, adaptability to change, and of course, increased production and quality. But that only comes when you align the goals of psychological safety with the work that we're doing every day. And so if you think about how we've addressed inclusion and mental health over the last few years as an industry, safety departments have really taken a hold of mental health, which is fantastic. If you have an issue of somebody being distracted by something internal or at home, there's an impact to the crew and themselves when it comes to physical safety as well. And so it's been great to see that tie and alignment between mental health and our safety departments. When it comes to inclusion, usually human resources is leading that charge, right?
Yeah.
With unconscious bias training or, making sure that people start to understand how leadership training folds in with those topics. But when you're trying to create a space for psychological safety, we talked before about how this is group learning behavior focused. You need to try to understand how to create that within the context of the work that we do throughout the day, because peak performance in the work that we're doing is actually the goal. And
Right.
so an example, you're in a meeting with your roofer. It's the pre-construction meeting. You're bringing them in to make sure that they know their scope and they're ready to go. And you're there with the city inspector and the owner's safety personnel. In that meeting, you can either just have them read their contract, you can go through your typical agenda, and you also have the opportunity to choose to make connections between those people and say, hey, when I submitted that submittal, I know the inspector here had some questions. Can we look at that? Or, hello, safety person. I want you to understand that this is the area of the roof that we're going to need a special plan. Maybe we can start
Yes.
talking through that. And it's through opening up that dialogue and giving people the permission and an understand contribution in their role, you give the opportunity to create that safe space.
Yeah, and that dialogue can, thinking from a business perspective, that dialogue could save money, it could save time, and most importantly, it could save lives.
Yep.
So very, very important. One of the things that I'm privileged to be a part of is the Associated Builders and Contractors has a new program called Inclusion, Diversity, and Merit. And it's all based on group learning about our entire job, right? And we call it total human health. And when they rolled this out, we've only had 2 workshops, but when they rolled it out the first time and I got to see it before we had a workshop, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it, right? Like, this is what we need. We need it to relate to everything that we're doing in the industry and not be separate. Like you said, HR is one side, safety is another. This is total human health. And we're not going to be able to get the best prospects in the field if we are not paying attention to total human health, period. Right? So anyway, I wanted to share that because as you were talking about the group and how all those dialogues need to be open, that was one of the things I thought of as that total human health piece. So thank you. In your experience, what are the most significant barriers to creating psychological safety and mental well-being in the construction industry?
Oh, goodness. The definition that I gave earlier, I said words like vulnerable, trust, embarrass, even the term psychological safety. It's so intimidating, especially when you're
Yeah.
trying to bring this to your job site. It doesn't sound like it aligns with our daily work. And so that automatically puts it in the category of equating to extra work and then misconceptions about what it means to create space for feelings on the job site. And so this language, it gets mixed up with our industry's, I think, historic biases, especially as it relates to our really constrained definition of respect. Trade workers often define respect through the actions, behaviors, or attitudes that reflect the acknowledgement of their expertise and contributions. And so respect is earned. Clarification about what psychological safety is and isn't becomes very important. And so when you're trying to align the goals of psychological safety and overcome challenges on how to create it, you need to make sure you're dispelling some myths. Like, this is not about learning to be nice. It's about trying to engage people to talk about what they care about, not having forced happy emotions, because people sniff that out a mile away.
Yes.
And then people are really concerned that you're just trying to make everybody feel comfortable, right? And it's not about everybody always feeling comfortable. It's about giving people the opportunity to express what they need to be more productive and in order to contribute to their team. It's not about increasing like fragility or like people's special snowflake feelings. People get really worried about that.
Yes.
It's about giving people the tools they need to be successful. And it is not an excuse for poor performance. Like, literally everything about psychological safety is getting everybody to feel that they can contribute to that peak performance
Right.
through their buy-in and their contributions.
Be the best that they can be.
Yeah,
Right. You're
exactly.
not the best that you can be when you are pretending to fit in or pretending to understand what other people are saying when you really don't. Like, ask the question so that you can be better and they can be better as well. And you can work together better. That communication is really important.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned, the language of industry biases. It is so, we had such a limited vocabulary, didn't we, for so many years? Like, if you said anything outside of these few things, it seemed like, oh my gosh, I got to learn something new, or that's scary. Why is that included today? I think that is really important for our listeners to hear. One of the things I was thinking as you were talking, you have to have stories about like positive impacts on a job that have happened based on this psychological safety, or it wouldn't keep moving forward, right? Like, that's kind of how it works. You have to have some positive experience. Your company has to see positive outcomes. Can you share one short story? I know we don't have a ton of time, but I'd love for you to share one story where this psychological safety has really impacted someone's life, maybe a group of someone's lives, or maybe a revenue increase in a job, or a job got done sooner, something like that. Can you share that?
Sure. Yes. One comes to mind recent, my last project, $100 million university engineering building, steep site, all concrete structure. The day our concrete trade partner got on board, I could tell they had just been so mistreated in the past by general contractors. And so there's that immediate sense of distrust. I worked for 9 months, not 9 months. It was like, I have 2 children. I'll say it's like, my next child. this relationship with this concrete trade partner. It was months of trying to make connections, just like in that roofing example. Like, if you understand who this person is, you'll be more successful. Here's our quality control manager. This is the role he'll be playing alongside you. Demonstrating a fairness. No, look, I did that with the drywaller too. You can't go through the gate if it's not scheduled, right? I'm treating everybody fairly. Collaboration, helping them be successful, calling the engineer with them to help communicate what they need for their reinforcing details, right? How do I get them to recognize this value in actually being open about communication? Well, 9 months in, 4:45 in the morning, I get a text from their superintendent. And it was like a mic drop moment for me. It's like my favorite example. He said, our truck arrived early and we'd like to take off some of the wall forms. Huge truck, right? Big wall forms on a campus, needs to be scheduled. It's not on my list. He said, it arrived early, we'd like to get it off. I see that the mechanical trade partner had fittings coming in now. How about I help them with my forklift so that I can make that go quicker so we can get our truck in early. I already talked to their foreman. Like,
Yay!
like it helps you, it helps them, you're all happy.
Yes.
And I don't even need to pick up my phone. I didn't even respond to it. Like, I told them later, like, thanks so much.
Yeah. Nice.
Great.
That's a perfect example. Thank you for sharing. I knew, and stories matter, right? Like when people see things in action and that they're working and it's really making a big impact. I bet you felt like a proud mom that day, right? 9 months of that.
I did. I mean, just the proactive problem solving, the increased communication, and really that it was all to make them successful. Like, yeah, that's the point. It's not to make me successful. It's like to make you successful. And that's what he got out of it.
Yeah. And now you guys are going to want to hire him again.
Oh, he's already worked for us a number of
well, I was going to say, like, he's always I was going to say he's going to always want to work for you too. Like that's the thing, right? We're building connections that are going to last a lifetime, not just one job.
Yeah. You know,
Awesome.
I think it would be cool for you to share. Do you have another story of success with this method? Because I think it's really important that our audience hear the successes that come from it. Do you have another one you could share?
Yeah, sure. So the way that I run my job sites, we have these morning huddles. So we're constantly like bringing in new leaders from different trade partners and introducing them in very, tactical ways into the expectations of the job site. And so somebody shows up and, I have them introduce who they are. I explain to everybody what their scope is. I explain who's around the circle, and I demonstrate and role model with the people who have been part of the team how to engage. Now, one morning, a new inspector showed up. So this is a third-party inspector testing concrete cylinders, testing the samples as they come off the trucks. And, I didn't know who this inspector was, but I brought him in just like that, as if, when did they ever get to speak in a four-person huddle, right? Never.
Good point.
And so later in the day, he pulls me aside and he goes, I have been working for 40 years on job sites. And he goes, I have never been on a job site that felt like this one. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
nice.
What does that mean, right? I always hope that, but what does it mean for the people who are only there 1 or 2 days a week? And he said, people are talking to each other to get things done that they need to get done. I'm like, yes, like, right?
That's the point.
That always the goal? He's like, but that people are willing to talk across trades, that they're proactively looking for solutions, and that there's not like this like privileged sense of like, no, that's not my job, so I'm not going to do it. He said, I have to tell you, my son has been the inspector out here for the last 3 months, and just seeing him change in how he's talking about the people on the job site.
Nice.
Like, there's something different here. And that was pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Awesome story.
Yes, kudos to you, and they get to go to work and enjoy themselves.
Yes,
there's not fighting going on, and one of the things that I remember so vividly is that PM or superintendent or whoever happens to be over the job, they had to talk to 500 people a day to make things happen. Well, that PM is not perfect. They're going to forget something that happened 4 hours ago, right? So if those conversations aren't happening in the field, I watched it. Those conversations did happen. I've been there, and then they forgot, or they got pulled into something else, and then those windows got installed with the wrong flashing, right? Like it happens, right? Like if you have, it's making your job easier. Like you literally have created an environment where you're not even needed, except when things go wrong, correct?
Yeah, I'm there just to clear the pathway for people to be
Yes.
successful.
So, I mean, not only are you creating an excellent environment for the people on your job sites, but you're creating an excellent life for you, work life, right? And the stress that comes along with our jobs is gone if you're running a job the way you're running a job. So thank you so much for sharing it and just, making people aware of, we can do better. We can all do better, right? We can all do better. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So we ready? Okay, we still got time. Yay, just a few more minutes. So we've got one more thing we're going to talk about before we close up. How can field leadership foster a project level values from new hires all the way up to seasoned veterans?
Oh, this is great. This is how you establish that vision for a job site. Now, I'm a superintendent. I've had 17 years experience across lots of things. But our gap in our industry is not, the people who have been through some great trainings and great resources provided by my large general contractor. The gap in our industry is that most of our field leaders are not trained to lead people, right? They put the most amount of lineal footage of wall in place last year. And so first and foremost, we need to recognize that we owe our field leadership some training and a better perspective of the responsibility and opportunity that they have to serve people in their roles. And this is where the alignment of psychological safety, inclusion, treatment of our people, and that recognition of humanity comes into play, because those field leaders are under so much pressure to continue producing, and now they have multiple people to also take care of. And so as organizations, as field leaders, something we can ask ourselves is, how are we defining the roles that we are performing and the expectations of our leadership? And so, for example, what are you putting out there as your currency as a leader? Are you the foreperson who's out there saying, look, those electricians can't clean up anything, hide the brooms? Or are you saying, please make sure we have an extra broom on every floor so that we can have people, give the tools and supplies in order to stay clean? Like, people will respond to you if they know what your currency is. If the answer is putting down electricians, that's what they're going to give you, knowing that gets them attention and value. If it's, hey, we're going to make sure everybody else has the tools and supplies they need, that's how they respond.
Love that.
Yes.
And so just framing what your expectations are with
Yeah.
what you talk about.
The power of words.
And don't speak negative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. It can be that easy. You then need
We
to
make
teach,
it
like,
complicated, right?
Sometimes.
once you have an idea of what it is that you want to stand for and expect of people, you need to teach your people how to participate in that exchange. And so
Right.
before you mention, like, from new apprentices through seasoned tradespeople, think about the orientation people get when they go to a job site. Usually it's like a safety orientation, if they get one at some level. In my orientations, I like to give them whenever possible, just because then people understand, like, the amount of context of their role. But you need to start with things like, thank you for being here. You're doing waterproofing. You can't see the building yet, but this is what it looks like in a rendering. Your role is really important because we can't put up the masonry until after you're done. So thanks for, being part of that. These are where the restrooms are. This is the break area. Like, normal things that recognize they're humans and the things they need most throughout the day. Like, share that. Because people won't know how to participate in what you're offering if you don't tell them. Quick example, that concrete trade partner, the very first day they showed up, there was a monster of a footing. It was a shear wall footing, a tower crane footing, and an elevator pit. Monster. A lot of issues, the most complicated one on site. But there was this old school carpenter who wouldn't smile at anybody teaching a brand new apprentice, brand new apprentice. And afterwards I said, thank you so much. That was a really great demonstration on how to kick that form. You must have been a teacher. And he said, I taught in the Navy for 5 years. And it just broke, like it told people that on this job site, the project superintendent values you teaching, not
Yes.
that we value something else, right? Not yelling.
Yes.
And so you got to teach people how to participate on your job site and within your values system, because you ultimately want to turn it over to them to continue participation. Just like the example that we gave about the phone, the mic drop moment with the phone text from that superintendent with the concrete company. Like, if they can take ownership of their experience, then
Yes.
you can see it measured in how many questions and solutions are offered in that morning four-person huddle.
And they get to go home with a sense of pride.
Yes.
And that's huge, right? It really is huge in our industry, because there's so many days that the job kicks our butt, period. Right? Either it's too hot, we didn't have enough water that day. It could be a million things. We don't even need to add the outside elements from our families and, personal things that may be going on the outside. Thank you so much. One of the things that you just said that made me think of is proactive versus reactive, right? What you're doing, building that camaraderie, building that just a conduit of conversation and dialogue, is helping everybody before anything even happens. And when you start a job with that, I can't imagine how much better the job goes, right? Not only for you, but for everybody that's on the team. So thank you so much for your time today. One of the things I want to ask you today, I always ask, I really want to ask some really like beefy questions personally. What is your, other than our podcast, what is your favorite podcast to listen to help you grow either personally or professionally? Are you not a podcast listener? Is that something that you like to listen to?
I do love podcasts. I think that there's a few in my rotation that some are construction, some aren't. I think is it Stuff You Should Know is always at the top.
Nice.
Gosh, you can learn so much about everything from penguins to the Donner Party to
That's cool.
Amaro. There's a great episode on the history of Amaros, just throwing that out there. And then the Elevate Construction podcast. I'm a huge fan of Jason Schroeder. And his book, Elevating Construction Superintendents, is like the life guide for anybody who wants to understand how to look at a job site. So I'll put those two out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, tell our audience, obviously, they know who you are after this talk, but tell them if there's a young girl that's looking for some advice from you, where's the best place to find you? If somebody wants to do business with Hensel Phelps, where would they find more information about Hensel Phelps? So most of our listeners are leaders and executives of companies. So they might be calling you after our podcast today. So just let our audience know how to reach you, whether it be personally or professionally.
Sure. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Kabri Lehrman-Schmid. I think you'll have the link in your show notes. Please, personal message me, whatever you need. I'm happy to connect on any topic, as well as just industry experience, as well as professionally as a representative of Hensel Phelps. I'm here in the leadership of our Pacific Northwest region. I'm in Seattle, but I've worked in Northern California as well as the Mid-Atlantic region. So have connections all over the country. I just am thrilled. I've been here for 17 years because of our high expectations for performance and treating our trade partners fairly.
Thank you so much for that. What a great example you are.
Yeah,
and
that is great.
Hensel Phelps is a great example. They typically are showing up. I'm part of the Women Construction Owners and Executives group. I don't know how familiar. Have you been to one of those meetings? I got to be on the board this year, and next year I get to be the incoming vice chair. So Hensel Phelps always wants to show up in Washington, D.C. and talk to our ladies and help us just learn how to do more business with them. And, just some of the wisdom that they give us in those meetings is really, really valuable for these ladies that are running their own companies. Maybe they're small, maybe they're big, but they're still running into challenges, right, as women-owned businesses. So thank you for what you do for women and what you do on your job site every day to make the mental well-being just a focus, but also included in our construction industry and how we show up every day. Thank you, Kabri, for joining us today.
Yeah, and I
Thank
want
you
to
so
mention
much for
one
the
thing.
opportunity.
Oh, sorry.
No, Carrie, the thing too is Christy and I a lot of times have people always asking us where should we work or where should I look for a job or where should I transition. This is
Good
perfect
point.
because they get to hear this story from you and how great your company is, and hopefully this will be another place we can connect others to,
Yeah.
is to your company and to you.
We've had a lot of women that want to transition into the construction industry since we started our podcast. And that's literally why we started it. We wanted to see more women in the industry. So, being able to share, how great Hensel Phelps is hopefully going to help you find more people,
Yeah.
which makes us happy. Thanks, Angela, for mentioning that. That was great. Thank you again, Kabri. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you, and blessings to you.